Rivals have been one of the cornerstones of the main series Pokemon games since their inception. From Blue to Silver to Serena to Hue and everybody in between, the Pokemon games love featuring these similarly aged rival characters who go on the same journey as you, constantly challenging you along the way and testing your skills. And while everyone has different opinions about what makes a good rival character in Pokemon, and everyone certainly has their favorites, I think one rival whose character arc hasn't really gotten the recognition it deserves is one of the most recent rivals. That being Hop from Pokemon Sword and Shield. The Generation 8 Pokemon games have been out for a little while now, so I really don't think there's any danger of recency bias when I say that Hop is actually one of my favorite rivals. So, much like with videos I've made before about Zuko and Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender, I wanted to make a video breaking down Hop's character arc, where he starts, where he goes, and how he changes, and why I feel like he's kind of been underrated by the Pokemon community at large. And just like always, just in case you haven't played Pokemon Sword and Shield yet, big time heckin' spoilers ahead.
F is for friends who do stuff together. U is for you and me.
So, just who is Hop, anyway? Hop is one of the three rival characters in Pokemon Sword and Shield's main story, and he's also the younger brother of Leon, the current reigning Galar League Pokemon champion, a man who has been undefeated for so long that many people consider him unbeatable. Naturally, being the younger brother of such a prolific Pokemon trainer makes Hop himself aspire to those same dizzying heights, so he and the main character both set out on the Galar League's gym challenge, with Hop wanting to eventually challenge and defeat his older brother Leon and become the Pokemon League champion himself. When you and Hop first start your journey, he's very much the prototypical friendly rival. He's enthusiastic, he's friends with the player, he's excited to get his Pokemon, and he really wants to become the next champion. To that same end though, he is a bit impulsive and kind of impatient, wanting nothing more than to get some Pokemon and get going on the journey so he can make that championship dream a reality, with every new achievement being just another page in the tale of his legend. A lot of folks probably saw this and figured, yep, he's just another boring friendly rival and that's it, but if you go beyond the first several hours you have with him and look into the trials and tribulations he faces and how he changes and grows and just the kind of expectations he's trying to live up to, you'll see that he's so much more than that. And of course, one of the biggest catalysts to that change was exactly the kind of rival that many people wanted instead.
That's right, Joey. Fall to the dirt like a whimpering dog.
Enter BEDE, one of the other rivals in Pokemon Sword and Shield, and owner of one of the absolute best battle themes on the soundtrack. BEDE makes it clear immediately that he's anything but the friendly rival. He's snide, rude, self-absorbed, and has a massive superiority complex, probably not helped by the fact that he was quite literally endorsed for the gym challenge by the chairman of the league. And while BEDE also has an interesting character arc, the thing I want to focus on here is how he affects Hop's character arc. BEDE confronts Hop and the player, saying that neither was worthy of Leon's endorsement, and even going so far as to insult Hop's Pokeball throwing technique. The two of them have a battle off screen, and by the time you cross the wild area to reach Hammerlock, only BEDE catches up with the player. He confidently declares that he crushed Hop in their battle, and even implies that the latter may drop the gym challenge altogether. And while Hop does eventually come back into the picture, he admits to the player that BEDE completely shook his confidence, with BEDE even implying that Hop is such a bad trainer that it would negatively affect Leon's reputation. By the time you battle Hop again in Stow-on's side, he's got a brand new team, save for the starter he got from Leon, full of Pokemon he'd never used before and wouldn't use again. And it's the same thing during your next battle with him on Route 7. BEDE had apparently curb-stomped Hop so decisively that Hop figured that the Pokemon he had in his party were what held him back from keeping up with the likes of BEDE and the main character. And trust me, the idea of building a Pokemon team you really like, only to get demolished by a more talented player, causing you to doubt yourself, drastically rethink the merit of your team, and whether or not you have any real skill at all is, it's pretty relatable.
The champion is amazing. So proud of my big bro. Check it out, Wooloo. In order to become the league champion, you gotta be able to do this.
To understand Hop's motivations and his mid-journey confidence slump, it's important to remember just who his brother is. We're talking about Leon here, okay? Leon, the unbeatable Galar League Pokemon champion. Leon, the guy who is so revered in Galar that people do his signature pose. Leon, who was believed to be so powerful and so skilled that Chairman Rose's plot to reignite the Darkest Day and reawaken Eternatus came with the sole safety net of assuming that Leon would be able to capture and control Eternatus all by himself. Hop himself obviously believes in this too, because BEDE's implication that Hop being a bad trainer would adversely affect people's view of Leon really messed with him. Not only that, but when you meet up with Hop again at Sirchester Stadium, he admits he lost a gym challenge for the first time in his journey, despite him doing just the same kind of stuff he saw Leon do in battles. That only further cements that Leon has always been Hop's primary model of skill when it comes to being a Pokemon trainer, if not his only model, and that he figured he could just replicate his brother's style and technique and be a success just like Leon. It's so indicative of just how much of his own identity and self-worth Hop placed in his brother's power and talent and reputation, and these ideals being put into question is what caused Hop to fall into such a slump. It's not even just that he lost to BEDE or that he kept losing to the player, it's how these losses would, in Hop's mind at least, make people lose faith in Leon as the unbeatable champion, the brother that Hop was so very proud of.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Thankfully for Hop, he did eventually start getting his groove back. After his loss at Sirchester Stadium, he vowed to finally settle on a team and challenges the player again, bringing back Pokemon he'd previously boxed, including his original partner, Wooloo, who had evolved into a Dubwool, showing that he had renewed confidence in the Pokemon that had been there with him from the start, and he'd actually stick with this new finalized team all the way through the rest of the game's main story. This renewed confidence is driven home in Hammerlock when Hop says that he initially was getting destroyed by Raihan, but he came out victorious after he stopped doubting every decision he ever made. That loss to BEDE may have put Hop down, but it didn't keep him down. It took some time, it took some thinking, and yeah, it probably took a few more losses to realize where he was struggling, but Hop eventually did get a renewed fire and passion for his gym challenge, so that he could not only do his brother proud, but so he could do himself proud. I think this turn for Hop's character can really be heard in the version of his battle theme that plays when you face him at Winden in the semifinals of the tournament. There's still bits of that light, playful, friendly music from before, but overall it's just so much more serious than his previous theme. It really encapsulates just how big of a moment this is for Hop. He's facing his best friend in the semifinals of a gym challenge to see who could potentially unseat the champion, his own older brother, who Hop has spent literally his entire career idolizing and emulating. He's under so much pressure to do well because he staked his confidence, his self-worth, his drive, and his passion as a trainer. All of it on this one battle. Win or lose, this battle is everything for Hop, and even after he loses to the player, he takes the loss in stride, saying that he's glad it was the player who was there with him in that pivotal moment. Of course, just because Hop could be happy for his friend, doesn't mean his doubts had all magically disappeared.
It's time for you to look inward and begin asking yourself the big questions. Who are you? And what do you want?
During the post-game story, you know, where those weirdos Swordward and Shieldbird stole Zacian and Zamazenta's sword and shield and a bunch of wishing stars and forcefully Dynamaxed a bunch of Pokemon, Hop comes along to try and stop them and helps you, Pierce, and various gym leaders try to calm down the Dynamax Pokemon running amok. But even throughout all of this, Hop can't help but feel like he's just dragging everyone else down due to his loss in the semifinals of the Champion Cup. The constant belittling from Swordward and Shieldbird certainly did him no favors. Even so, Hop is driven to stop them and retrieve the artifact that they stole, even going so far as to chase after the legendary Pokemon while it was still loaded with Galar particles to try and calm it down by himself. Then he challenges the player to one last battle, wanting to finish things where they all started for the two of them, there in the slumbering Weald. During the battle, Hop admits that he didn't really know what his purpose was anymore, now that Leon was no longer there as the champion for him to surpass, and admitted part of why he struggled was that he didn't really follow his own path in life. But it was during the whole mess with Swordward and Shieldbird that he started to realize that he may have a new purpose, a new goal to strive for. to help people and Pokemon all around the world. And thus, Hop resolves to become a Pokemon professor, with Sonia even offering him a job as her assistant back at the lab. Leon then comes in and reveals he'd watched the final battle between Hop and the player, and said he was proud of Hop and gave him his full support on this new path in life. Something that obviously meant quite a lot to Hop. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that beyond anything else in the world, all Hop really ever wanted was for his older brother to be proud of him.
The most important part? Now they can live their own lives and make their own futures. And I can't wait to see the kind of future they make.
You know, one of the running themes that I really don't think gets talked about enough in Sword and Shield is the idea of the previous generation passing the reins on to the next, and just what kind of world they're going to leave behind for the people that come after. We see this with Sonia being made into a full-fledged Pokemon professor by Professor Magnolia, with Pierce wanting to retire as the Spikemuth gym leader and have his little sister Marnie take over, with Swordward and Shieldbird trying to maintain a fabricated history to ensure their family's celebrity status remains intact for ages to come, and even with BEDE being made into Opal's all-pink everything successor as the fairy-type gym leader. And I think the place where this idea is the most prominent is with Hop and Leon. Hop obviously started this journey with the hope of beating his older brother, taking the title of champion, and proving he was just as good, if not better. Likely in part because he felt like it was his destiny as the younger brother of the unbeatable Leon. But like I've talked about all over this video, so many things called that destiny into question, making Hop reevaluate his purpose and what he was really striving for. And while he wasn't successful in achieving his initial goal of becoming the champion, his new drive to become a professor is incredibly admirable. Not just for its own sake, but it shows that Hop is able to accept that maybe he's not meant to be in the limelight like Leon or the main character, but he can still make a great, fulfilling, and positive livelihood for himself, learning everything he can about Pokemon, so that maybe he'll become the next great Pokemon professor, counted among the likes of Oak and Elm and Juniper and Sycamore. You know, I don't really think there's any better way to describe Hop's character arc than to say that, well, it's ultimately him realizing that he's not the main character of a Pokemon game. He's not the star of the show, he's not the one destined to become the champion and become this world-renowned trainer who everyone admires for their strength and skill, and you know what? That's okay, because he can still be great as a professor and help new trainers along the way. And that in itself is worthy of great admiration. Hop doesn't have to live his life constantly trying to be Leon and chasing the dragon of his older brother's glory, because he's his own person, with his own drive, his own strength, and his own passion. And in the end, he doesn't need to be the next Leon, because he's gonna be the first Hop. But now I want to hear from you guys. What do you think of Hop as a rival in Pokemon Sword and Shield? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to thumbs up this video if you liked it, and hey, maybe consider subscribing and ringing the bell so you know when I upload next. And I promise it'll be sooner than 4 months this time. Alright everybody, thanks for watching. See you in the next video, friendos.